What's going on, guys? This video is going to be a little different than my usual video. I'm trying a new format. We'll see if it works. Who knows? I hope it does. I want to talk about the 10 concerts I feel the most lucky to have gone to in my lifetime. Now, I've gone to a lot of shows over my life. Since I was 15, I've been going to concerts very regularly, and I've seen so many good ones over the years. But there are 10 that stand out, whether it's the story associated with them or it's just because it's like a very rare experience to get to see an artist, and I want to share them with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little voiceover over some imagery from those shows and talk about my story for each one. They're not going to be terribly long, but I hope they're entertaining. And what I would love for you to do is leave a comment below with your favorite concerts you've ever been to. I always love reading about people's concert experiences. I feel like they're very magical places, and I have had some of the best days and nights of my life at various shows, specifically some of the ones I'm about to talk about. So I hope you guys enjoy this kind of story time of all of the shows that I love the most from my lifetime. Kanye, 808s and Heartbreak at the Hollywood Bowl. The Kanye shows that I've been to in my lifetime have all been legendary in different ways. When he's on, he's on. And while occasionally he lets his ego get the best of him, or unfortunately struggles with mental health in a public way, I can say that every show I've seen of his has been nothing less than spectacular. I saw him at Governor's Ball before Yeezus came out, on the Yeezus tour, at Life is Beautiful, and at the Drake and Kanye show that happened recently, but the standout was the 808s and Heartbreak show at the Hollywood Bowl. I didn't have any friends that liked the album enough to go with me at the time, but since it's in my top 5 albums ever, I had to go solo. He played the entirety of the album front to back with a slew of special guests, including Kid Cudi and Mr. Hudson. He even did the outro Pinocchio Story, which was a rare treat that he's hardly ever done live. I do vividly recall a group of people standing next to me talking over the majority of the outro, and I was pretty furious, but either way, it was an amazing tribute to one of the most special albums of my lifetime, and a lot of those songs he probably won't play live again. Desert Trip. I find it hard to think that any concert in history could be more legendary than Desert Trip. Sure, there have been benefits where tons of amazing artists played, but those were all tiny, short mini sets, and this was 6 full-size, arguably plus-size sets by some of the most legendary musicians of all time. Spanning 3 days with 2 acts per night and taking place at the Polo Grounds where Coachella sets up every year, there was magic in the air from the first moment I stepped onto the field to the last note played. Night 1 was the Rolling Stones and Bob Dylan. Dylan, one of my favorite artists of all time, put on an, as expected, lackluster show. Mostly played songs that were obscurities from his catalog, and the ones that were recognizable were sloppy renditions. He didn't address the audience once, and unfortunately, despite my love for him, it was the low light of the weekend. Didn't take away from how amazing the whole thing was as a whole. The Stones put on an all-killer, no-filler set, and even covered Come Together as a tribute to sharing the stage with Paul, who would play the next day. So day 2 was Neil Young and Paul McCartney. Neil jammed an incredible Down by the River that made me feel like I was transcending time and space. Paul played a career-spanning set with plenty of Beatles tunes to everyone's delight, but the highlight for me was the first ever performance of White Album cut Why Don't We Do It in the Road, which Neil Young came and jammed with him for what felt like close to 10 minutes. The third and final day featured The Who and Roger Waters. The Who are a band I enjoy, but I wouldn't say I'm a gigantic fan. But that being said, they put on a hell of a show. Roger Waters stole the whole weekend, which is high praise for the company he kept. Setting up his own special audio treatment for the field, no matter where you stood, it felt like surround sound. He ripped through nearly the entirety of Dark Side, Animals, Wish You Were Here, and a few choice cuts from The Wall. He played for 3 solid hours, and it was one of the coolest things I have ever seen. The only way it could have topped it is if Pink Floyd actually reunited. Let's see if they can get Zeppelin to put their differences aside for the inevitable follow-up that will probably happen sometime this decade. The National, I Am Easy to Find pre-album release shows. The National is my favorite band, as everyone knows, and I've been lucky enough to see them live a handful of times over the years, the first time being around the High Violet era. Before I Am Easy to Find came out, they did a few special shows around the world with special guests and many of the female vocalists that were on the upcoming album. I got lucky enough to go to the Los Angeles show, but not only that, I somehow scored first row tickets, something that has never happened to me in the hundreds of shows from my lifetime. Being that close to the band and watching them perform their new album for the first time was an overwhelming experience, especially because I loved the album on first listen. The guests at my show included Feist and Phoebe Bridgers, which is always a treat. After the album concluded, they went on to perform an encore of some of their greatest hits, and the first one was Sleep Well Beast standout, The System Only Dreams in Total Darkness. Towards the end of the song, Matt came off stage, as he tends to do, in a frenzy, and he walked into my first row, locked eyes with me, ran up to me, and smashed his forehead directly into mine. With the mic between us, we both screamed the "I can't explain it" part towards the end of the song that's extremely high energy for about 10 seconds, and it was easily one of the most surreal moments of my life. I have scoured the internet for a video of this moment, and unfortunately, I don't think one exists. Pearl Jam home shows, Seattle. If you watch this channel, you know I love Pearl Jam. I fell into the Jamily a little later in life, having my grunge phase in my mid-20s. All of those years of missing out on Pearl Jam shows, what a tragedy. They announced the 2018 home shows in Seattle, and I ended up grabbing tickets to both nights. The first night, I went with my friend Heather Thomas, who's an awesome musician, and she's actually been featured on this channel before, for those of you that have seen all the videos I've put out. And we were up in the seats, not super close to the stage, still an unbelievable first taste of the band and what they could do live. Night 2, however, was truly legendary. I went with my buddy Eric, and we were in the pit, probably 6 rows back from the stage. The energy was infectious. Sometimes in a pit you can fear for your safety a little, but everyone was singing and having a terrific time for the entire show, which lasted nearly 3.5 hours, easily the longest show I've ever been to. The cover of Chris Cornell's Missing, which was one of the first ways that Eddie publicly addressed his grief over losing one of his best friends, was beautiful. They also busted out Mother Love Bone classic Crown of Thorns, which is a super rarity that I never thought I'd get a chance to see. The set was just hit after hit from every era of the band, and I was just in awe of what these guys brought to the stage. I think any casual fan of the band would turn into a big fan if they went to a show. This is easily one of the most impressive live acts I've ever had the pleasure of seeing. Frank Ocean at FYF. The elusive Frank Ocean headlined FYF in 2017. Known for canceling shows and tours last minute, the musical legend is a tough one to see live, which is a tragedy because he is a stellar performer. Not long after Blonde came out, I was a fan of the album, but I didn't love it as much as his opus, Channel Orange. For some reason, and I can't fully understand why, the material just didn't connect with me as much on a lyrical or sonic level. This show changed everything. He confidently ran through the majority of the album, and the love the crowd had for him was incredible. Brad Pitt even came out at one point during the set to take a phone call, which marks the most random thing to ever happen at a show in my lifetime. The show ended with his breakout hit, Thinking About You, and my only disappointment was that he didn't play his epic club banger, Pyramids, to end the show like he did a few nights prior at another gig. The reason the show is so special to me is that it unlocked Blonde's brilliance for me. I was super wrong in underrating it, and seeing the material live allowed me to really appreciate it on a whole new level. I now view it on the same playing field as Channel Orange, and much like the rest of the world, eagerly await a follow-up record. Boy Genius. Boy Genius was an unexpected indie supergroup that lived up to expectations and hit at the exact right time. The world was falling in love with Phoebe Bridgers, Julian Baker, and Lucy Dacus, and naturally they decided it would be a good idea to put out a 6-song EP under the name Boy Genius. These 6 songs are up there with the best material any of them have put out individually, and I revisit it frequently. When they announced they were touring as Boy Genius, my mind immediately started wandering as I wondered what the format of the show would be. Well, it exceeded any and all expectations when it ended up being a 3-hour show that began with a Lucy set, followed up with a Julian set, entered into a Phoebe set, and ended with them all performing the EP together in full, along with a bone-chillingly beautiful cover of The Killer's Read My Mind. This was pre-Punisher, so Phoebe only played songs from her stellar debut, and this was my favorite era of Julian because it encompassed her first 2 records, which are my favorites in her discography. Brand New's album shows on the coasts. I want to preface this statement by saying that Brand New is somewhat of a hot-button topic due to the allegations against the lead singer Jesse Lacey. By sharing this story, I am not openly supporting or defending Jesse with regards to the allegations against him. I am talking about a formative band for me and an experience I had with them before any of this was brought to light. That being said, Brand New has been an important band to me for a long time. Arguably the best of their genre, their tenacity throughout their career left us with 5 stellar records, each with a different mastery of the vibe and sound they were projecting. In 2013, they announced they were doing 4 shows, 2 on each coast, where they'd be playing 2 albums in full each night. But the catch was they didn't announce what albums they'd be playing. I knew which ones I wanted, but also knew that I'd be happy with whatever they played. While in line, I started chatting with a pretty cool dude that was also a huge fan of the band, and we swapped stories about them, theories about what they might play at the show, and this guy ended up becoming one of my best friends I've ever made in my lifetime. We're still super close to this day. This is what I love about music, it really can bring people together. Upon entering the tiny venue, the Observatory in Santa Ana, the band took the stage and began shredding Shower Scene, the start of their debut pop-punk opus Your Favorite Weapon, and the entire room exploded. They confidently jammed the entire album without missing a beat and even did the B-sides after. The room was pin drop silent as we waited to see what the next album would be, and then the beautiful opener, Tutu, happened, and a wave of joy that was genuinely palpable filled the room. The discography top dog Deja Entendu was next, and they absolutely crushed it. This night was one of the most memorable shows of my lifetime, and I wish I could relive it over and over again. Temple of the Dog Reunion Tour. Temple of the Dog is one of the greatest grunge projects of all time, and it's basically Pearl Jam minus Eddie Vedder plus Chris Cornell. Eddie still managed to find his way on the album a few times though, most notably on the track Hunger Strike, which is one of my favorite songs of all time. The album was created as a tribute to Mother Love Bone singer Andy Wood, who was Cornell's roommate and good friend and passed away unexpectedly. Temple of the Dog reunited in 2016 to perform a string of shows for the first time in decades, and I wasn't going to go at first because the tickets at retail were quite expensive. My friend Lynn and I decided at the very last minute to bite the bullet and get some super cheap seats at the Forum for about $40 a ticket after fees. Upon getting there, we were pleasantly surprised to see the seats weren't so bad. They were far back, sure, but they were directly facing the stage, so the sound was immaculate. Temple of the Dog came out and did their thing so well you wouldn't have thought they ever stopped. Chris was a charming and charismatic frontman, as he was known to be, and they told stories and jammed classics and even did some wild covers like Sabbath's War Pigs. $40 well spent, that's for sure. Tragically, he passed away not that long after the show, and that was my only time I got to see him live. I'm grateful that I made the last-minute leap to see my favorite singer of all time, and simultaneously regretful that I didn't prioritize it more during his time with us. Nature World Night Out 2017. At the time, I didn't realize this was as special as it was, but looking back, this was an unbelievable evening. A single-day festival in 2017 in Los Angeles featured heavy hitters from the emo, underground, rap, and hardcore scenes. Cameron was the headliner, and while that was a fun show, it was hardly the highlight. Corbin, formerly known as Spooky Black, put on a mesmerizing set with his powerful yet fragile vocals. It was my introduction to him and made me a big fan from that one set alone. Tommy Genesis played an early show in her career, and she's made some pretty big waves since then. I remember walking past her on the stairs as she was doing some sort of photo shoot. The accessibility of the artist at the show was really unique, as it felt very DIY despite having some fairly big names attached. My friend Vahe actually snuck into the artist's green room at one point and told my buddy and I how to get in, so we popped in for a bit. It was super casual, and I remember I was sitting 10 feet away from Lil Ugly Mane, one of my musical heroes, and it was just a surreal moment. I actually didn't get to meet him officially until a show a couple years later, but that's a story for another time. The two big highlights to make this story special are two sets that will never be performed again for very different reasons. The first was Secret Circle, an underground hip-hop supergroup consisting of Lil Ugly Mane, Wiki, and Antoine. The first two names I mentioned are incredible wordsmiths, absolute geniuses, and the third was unfortunately revealed after this show to be a pretty scummy person with multiple sexual assault charges. Those issues coming to the surface effectively ended Secret Circle before this album ever came out, but getting to see them perform a set was pretty crazy. The second part was getting to see Lil Peep live, someone I had never really heard of before that day. Some of you might think this is crazy, but he's sometimes referred to as the Kurt Cobain of his generation, and I'll tell you why. He was a pioneer for the emo rap movement that so many people are connecting with these days, and he was also the first major loss of a musical idol that many younger people than me faced in their lifetime. He absolutely commanded the stage, while 15 to 20 members of Goth Boy Clique and some of their other friends joined them for sing-along after sing-along. The audience was so into it, and I was in complete awe of what I was witnessing. I knew it was something special, and to be a part of it is something I'll never forget. Radiohead, A Moon-Shaped Pool Tour. I had seen Radiohead once prior to the A Moon-Shaped Pool Tour, but it was a tragedy. I had 6th row seats in New York City to see them on the second night of their 2-night stint, or so I thought. At 10 p.m. the night before, what I thought was my show, I realized I had mixed the dates up, and my tickets were for that night. I was justifiably heartbroken. My friend I was going with to cheer me up bought tickets for us for the next night, which was extremely generous. And nothing against him, but the only seats available were bad. Real bad. I could touch the back wall of the arena bad. The show was wonderful, but I can only imagine in that moment what could have been. So let's cut to the Moon-Shaped Pool Tour in LA, where tickets obviously sold out very fast because they're Radiohead, but I was desperate to go. So desperate that I threw up an ad on Craigslist saying that if someone was willing to sell me a ticket for face value, I would let them guest on my YouTube show and talk about whatever they wanted. In retrospect, not only is that a less than compelling offer, because at the time the channel was a lot smaller than it is now, it could also have ended very poorly for me. I only got one response from the ad from a kind guy named Michael. He said he had an extra ticket and would sell it for face. He didn't want to come on the show because he wasn't really an on-camera guy, but told me to buy him a beer. That seemed more than acceptable, so I gratefully took him up on the offer. Day of the show, we met up, and thankfully he was a very kind, cool dude. Beers were purchased, and he asked if I wanted to go in the venue. As we started walking down the aisle, I wondered where the seats were, but he kept walking closer and closer to the front. My heart started beating faster and faster as we got right up to the tiny pit by the stage, and he showed the tickets to the attendant. I looked at him in complete befuddlement, realizing he had pit tickets, and we walked right up to the stage. I really think he got a kick out of how excited I was. They proceeded to then put on an unforgettable show, and I think Tom even spit on me during Idiotech. I remember looking back during the show and seeing the entire room and balcony enraptured by the music, and I felt so damn lucky to be where I was. So there it is. Those are the 10 that stick out the most to me. There's definitely more I'm probably forgetting, but these are the ones that I want to talk about in this video. I hope you guys liked it. As I mentioned before, I'd love for you to leave a comment below with your favorite concerts that you've ever been to. And if this is your first time on the channel, this video is a little different than what I usually do, but if you're into music, if you're into vinyl, I implore you to hit that subscribe button. Make sure the bell's turned on. I put out a lot of videos, and there's going to be a lot of good ones coming out this year, specifically with regards to the record store that I am opening. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and there are more videos coming very soon. So thanks again for watching. Take it easy.